Oh, welcome to the Banking on Connections podcast. I'm Garrett Woody, Senior Enterprise Architect and Vice President at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, and I also head up our AI/ML Center of Excellence. In this episode, we're kicking off a series of conversations focused on AI and its impact on financial services. This is largely geared towards executives and risk leaders and technology leaders at your organizations. The theme of today's episode is around value. At the end of this, we hope you're going to take back a better understanding of what value is for you, where you can find value in the tools you may already have, and how you can more quickly achieve these value statements you're striving for. So my partner in this podcast is Colton Connor, Vice President and Senior Manager of Data and AI Engineering at Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago. Glad to have you here, my friend.
It's great to be here, Garrett. I'm excited to be doing this with you. Do you know we've been working together for almost 13 years?
It's been a while.
And it almost feels like you could be my brother.
You know, we get confused a lot. And with these video podcasts, it doesn't help that cause, I guess.
But I did hear that this is one of our first video podcasts. And I have to say, you have the right look for it.
It's not an AI hallucination. There are actually two of us here.
That's right. So, Garrett, it feels like AI is everywhere right now. There's a new headline. There's agentic AI. Last year was Gen AI. Now we're talking about agentic workforces. And I was at a Tableau conference a couple of weeks ago, and that was a theme about how we're using AI and how we're using the most advanced AI and how we're maximizing the value of AI. So when you think about all this hype we're hearing, how do you think we can maximize the value of AI?
Well, first off, that stresses me out. But I think the place to start is to level set on what that value statement is in the first place. Right. We don't want to be doing AI for the sake of AI just because it's on that hype cycle. So I think it's multiple ways to look at what value is for us, for other organizations, and the easy one to go to is dollars and cents, right? But we know that's not always the case. And especially as AI's in, I don't want to say early stages, but as we continue to evolve and it rapidly grows, it's tough to quantify that sometimes or measure that dollars and cents.
So if I'm someone at an organization who's been asked to figure out where we can leverage AI and how we can see value from AI, where do we want to start?
Well, I think they're asking the wrong question in the first place. It's not where can we find value in AI. It's what are our value statements and can AI help us achieve that value in the first place?
I like that. What are some examples?
Well, I think some of the examples we have are, the learnings that come with AI in the first place. So there's value statements in just playing around with it, to be honest, because as we learn how to use it and it's ever changing, it's tough to keep up with it. So there's some value statement around that.
Yeah, and people talk about, hey, AI is here to stay. And we expect people to learn how to use AI, and that will become part of their jobs. So just learning how to use AI is valuable, even if it doesn't translate into dollars and cents return on investment.
100%.
Now.
Well, I think there's also the value statement of having AI tools available to your workforce in the sense of we try to attract talent into our organizations, right?
Yeah.
And, the example of having an accountant coming in and telling them you can't use a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, right? It's a detractor for them. That's not a place they want to go. And now as people are coming out of college and using, these generative AI type of tools on a day-to-day basis, they expect it in the workforce as well. So adopting some of these tools is keeping pace in a sense with just general productivity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was at a recruitment fair last year on behalf of the bank and talking to a lot of students who are looking to graduate, looking for the first job. They are asking, how is your organization using AI? And I was able to say some of the ways we're using it, including with our generative AI chatbot that our employees are able to use and see some productivity gains and be innovative and creative and just start to gain some comfort in using it. So there's a lot of value in that application of AI.
Well, the other thing, or maybe last thing that comes to mind too, is what the value is not. And for us, it's not about getting rid of employees, right? It's not about replacing our workforce with AI. And I think this is a two-pronged thing because that's not what we're trying to accomplish. But on the same end, people are very scared of AI. And by using it and making these statements, we're hopefully reducing that fear of that and making it something that they actually want to use for their job.
I agree with you. What an intimidating way to roll out AI if you have the goal of trying to reduce your workforce by leveraging AI. Of course, no one's going to adopt it.
Right.
So what are some other areas that when we think about value and defining what that means that we've seen at our organization?
Well, I think some other value statements are probably around, it's not dollars and cents, but we're leveraging AI to accelerate us, to make better decisions on things, more quality output of things from a consistency perspective. So it's across the board. It depends on which area you focus on, from general productivity tools to developer tools to, the things that people are used to using on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I would also add, it's also looking at initiatives that are taking place today, strategic objectives of the organization, and then figuring out where AI can help accelerate or help add value in some of those strategic drivers that you're already working on for the organization.
Well, and I think that might be a good transition into one of our strategic drivers. We're looking to enhance our operations, right? That is constantly a thing with technology. And one of the tools we brought in for that is, an enterprise productivity assistant. But these general tools that offer productivity gains across the board. These are the ones I'm talking about that people are expecting when they come into the organization. And this is one we've rolled out here for our entire workforce, and we've had it for, a year plus at this point.
I think I remember at a all-staff meeting last year, we actually had a pilot come in and roll out Copilot to the organization.
I'm disappointed. I forgot to bring my pilot hat with me for this one.
You are that pilot, right?
Next time. I am that pilot. Somebody in the elevator today recognized me as that pilot, called me out by name. So, but to that point too, these tools though, you can't just bring in the tools. If you just lay the tools in front of them, you're not going to get the real value out of those tools. And I think part of that is the value comes with the adoption of them. And for adoption, that requires training in organizational change management. And yes, that pilot thing was part of that. But also other training opportunities we brought in for the bank and more we hope to bring in as well. Because to your kind of starting statement about all the hype out there, yes, there's hype, but yes, it is constantly changing as well. So the training we did a year ago is not the same training we probably do today because the tools are different. The capabilities are new.
Right. And to reiterate, it's really important that you get on the same page with the leaders of your organization who are asking you to implement AI and to try and get value from AI is defining what that value means. And we talked about one of the examples. You walked us through that, Mr. Pilot. But another example is we are launching an initiative to really improve our customer and digital experience and removing friction in that experience. And so that's an area that we can look at and say, how do we want to have AI help us achieve some of that value? And we actually have an example that we are excited that we're going to launch soon, but it's an external facing chatbot. We regularly hear that it's really painful to navigate our guides and to understand where to go to find the information you need and to make things really easy to do business with us. And so having a lower risk application of AI that helps you get back more natural language responses so you don't need to go and navigate the guide yourself, it's a great win for us. And there's not a good way to measure the ROI in terms of, dollars saved or increased productivity gains. Sure, there hopefully will be some call deflections and some better self-service, but ultimately the value driver for us there is improving the customer experience and removing that friction of doing business with the bank.
So when you said we're excited about that, who's the we then?
The bank.
The bank?
No, let me be more specific. The business area that's driving that strategic initiative, they need to be excited about it.
100%.
Because guess what? Us IT guys, we get excited about this stuff. And sometimes we get excited about this stuff before we align with the business on whether or not this is the right way to leverage the technology to build out a solution. And we actually have that learning as well.
Well, and sometimes it's not just the right way, sometimes it's the right time.
Right.
Right? It could be the great solution, but maybe that business area just isn't ready for it yet.
Right.
But in this case, I think this is a great example of, so we talked about the internal tools that are becoming table stakes.
Yeah.
I think something like this, a natural language search chatbot on your externally facing website is also becoming the norm.
Right.
Right. I'm surprised when I go to a website, I don't see that at this point, right? It's popping up everywhere.
Right. It's actually, I'd go a step further. It's kind of frustrating when it's not there.
This is frustrating for us too, because now we have to keep pace. But I think our goal is to ride the wave of the technology. We don't want to be in the forefront of it. We want to find that right risk level and that right approach to it. And I think this touches on that.
Yeah. And I'm glad we as technologists get excited about this stuff because that's what helps bring this to the organization. But we still have to make sure that we're aligning with our business partners and making sure we're accomplishing business objectives or helping accomplish business objectives. Because when we started this path, we've been on this path now for a few years and we've got some really great learnings to share. And we're now starting to really see value at a scale. And in the earlier days, I think we were more in a proof of concept, kind of think tank innovation space, which was good for us. It was really helpful to do that.
You have to bring it to them sometimes, right?
Right.
Teach them, show them the possibilities as well.
That's right. And an earlier solution we had around forecasting some of our financial projections, our team was really excited about building this out. And we missed some earlier opportunities to make sure we were aligned with the business on what would be the solution, what would be the value we'd see, what's important in that solution. We kind of found ourselves in this pushing solution on to them. And I would recommend for anyone else starting to think about this for the organization, that's not the right model.
I agree. I think there are also some benefits to it as well, though. So your team, I think, learned a lot through that process as well. I think it taught the business a lot through that process. Sure. Do we want to do that in everyone? No. But especially when new technologies and new things that we're doing, sometimes that helps push the discussion. And I think that one specifically did help lead that discussion to a place where we're in a better place now to move these forward in the future.
I'd say we have another key learning that we can share from that specific solution as well is we spent a lot of time and a lot of resources on building that out and learning the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're getting started with AI at your organization or being asked to realize value more quickly, don't start with trying to build out your own solution from scratch. I think you can do that down the road, but I would first look for, we talked about defining value. We talked about aligning to business objectives and strategic priorities, getting the right, stakeholder alignment. But then it's also looking at the current suite of tools that you have and applications that you have supporting Royce in place, and then looking for what capabilities those tools already may have that you either have it turned on or you need to configure. And, a great example, a lot of organizations are starting to use tools for their customer relationship management. But also some of those licenses can be expensive. So before you want to go all in with a big investment, play around with it a little bit first before you then scale that out.
Well, I think you're touching on the point, though, that it doesn't require a multi-million-dollar investment to get started with these things. It doesn't require a full team of data scientists.
Right.
Some of the people listening to this right now might be an organization of 5 or 20, or, they might be 200 or 2,000 or 20,000. And so it's going to depend on where you're at in your journey, the size of your organization. Start with a couple of people. Try it out. Get some learnings from them. Scale beyond that as appropriate. You don't need to go all in. And I think you touched on it before too, that you can start with low risk use cases. So path of least resistance, right? Start with the things that, maybe don't cost a ton of money, that still have value statements attached to them, but that you can scale up over time. And I think that's an approach we've taken that some of them have been very successful with that.
I'd add one, and that the risk is relatively low, right?
Totally.
You're not basing your financial projections off of an AI model, but that helping to find and retrieve information from guides and organize that better, that's a fairly low risk way to approach it with, if that's going to be your first use case with customers, for example. And that's a good place to start.
I think it is tough because you want to shoot for the stars sometimes. You want to see this thing's going to be the real transformational thing for my organization and this huge value statement. But when you're just starting off your journey too, that can seem so far off, right? In the world of AI changing so quickly, and now you're learning as you're going with some of that, and it's a year off, and who knows what AI is going to be at that point in time. I think some of these quicker wins leading up to that help compound and drive those value statements in a different way.
I would argue starting off on your AI journey with the statement of AI transformation is probably not going to lead to transformation.
I agree that there's a challenge statement in there for sure.
We haven't touched much on governance or risk. Like, I think we're assuming, maybe wrongfully so, that most organizations already know they need to do that. So if you have current governance processes that look at whether or not a solution is the right type of solution and how you're treating your data, definitely leverage those and make sure they're going to account for the risks of AI. I would say also important, though, is with the speed at which this technology is coming out, and we're trying to navigate this too, but that concept of being able to fail fast. So you don't make this huge investment and you think you have a hypothesis on what the value is going to be, but you can try it out in a proof of concept, safe, contained, sandboxed type of way. And then you can validate that. And if it's not what you thought it was going to be and it fails, okay.
I'm glad to hear you say governance, because as listeners will learn over time, I'm the red tape guy. You're the innovation guy. But it takes both, I think, to get us there.
It does.
And I think on the governance side, the lesson learned, I think, that we can share is do the right size governance. So you don't need the end state full-blown solution necessarily. If you're working with something that has public data and, like you said, it's generating summaries, that's a different level of governance than you might need for something where you are doing financial projections and it's, related to SOX, and, there's a different control matrix you have for those. So find that right size to get started and then grow it as necessary as the solutions come by.
And I'd be remiss not to mention, since you are the governance guy and you love the red tape, as you think about the governance processes, it's really important to keep the space for the innovation as well. Governance, very important, but keep that innovation alive, because you have folks in your organization that want to innovate, that want to be creative, that want to think about ways of using AI that you might not have even thought of, that we might have not thought of.
And just because I'm not going to let you get away with just the innovation statement, I think the governance helps support the innovation too, right? When you have the right set of guardrails, the minimal set you need, then you can be comfortable innovating in that space. A lot of solutions today offer sandbox environments that they can clone and take it over here and you go play around with this stuff. That's a great way to allow them to innovate quickly, fail fast, and move things forward. So we've talked a lot about AI today, or value statements related to AI. It's been a great conversation. You could say I value the conversation. Right, quitting.
So let's bring it back and what are some tangible key takeaways if I'm somebody at an organization, whether an executive, technology leader, a business leader, anyone that's feeling pressure, whether explicit or implicit, from all the hype that's out there and organizations wanting to do something with AI, what are the next steps for me?
I think there's three big things I would focus on, and it's kind of the topics we've been talking about today. So you're getting pressure to move forward. Find those value statements first. It's really tough to argue against those value statements when you understand those first. When you start with the tool leading into the value, you may get a little bit more pushback. I think the second thing is find the value in the tools you already have. These are AIs cropping up in everything we have today, and sometimes it's just a checkbox to turn it on. And then lastly, I think align with your business units on this, right? Yep. And ensure that they're driving the value statements and they see the value, because you're going to get a lot more buy-in that way than trying to push it on them, a little bit of, receiving it from them and taking it from there. And I think those approaches to things are ways you'll get a lot of traction as your organizations.
Agreed. And avoid statements like, we're going to do this AI transformation. We're going to make this massive AI investment. We're going to see it, 2 or 3 or 10x ROI of this investment. Those aren't the right places to start.
And if that works for you, more power to you. But
I didn't want to listen to how you're doing.
Let us know your podcast.
So this has been a great conversation. Hopefully there's some great nuggets in there for leaders at other organizations to take away, to start seeing the value from AI at their organizations. And I've actually enjoyed the conversation with you today. I enjoy most of them with you, except when you're trying to add more red tape and more governance.
Fair.
But as always, great talking with you, Garrett, and I look forward to future conversations.
100%. And for the listeners out there, so we discussed today, the value of AI isn't necessarily about making these massive investments or, chasing these new capabilities. In many cases, it's about understanding where AI can solve real business challenges and making the most of the tools you might already have in your organization. But as Colton mentioned, we look forward to continuing this conversation in future episodes and how AI might have an impact in the financial services industry. So thanks for listening to the Banking on Connections podcast. We'll see you next time.
The Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago is providing this podcast for informational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute professional advice or an interpretation of Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago policies. The views expressed by any guests are their own, and their appearance on this program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent.